Three major shows ended this year: Euphoria, Stranger Things, and The Boys. These are shows of three completely different genres, three different networks, and they have their different fan bases who have spent years, in some cases nearly a decade, waiting for a proper send-off. When Euphoria's finale aired, people online were already comparing it to Stranger Things. When The Boys wrapped a few weeks later, fans were asking whether it was as bad as Stranger Things 2. So that's a pattern forming in real time. And today we're breaking down exactly how three of the biggest shows on television all managed to stumble at the finish line in the same 12-month stretch. Before diving in, it's worth addressing the obvious pushback. Don't people always complain about finales? Sure, to a degree, but there's a real difference between mild fan grumbling and what actually happened this year. We're talking about audience scores dropping 30 plus points between earlier season and the finale season. We're talking about a show's own creator publicly saying he regrets doing press after the backlash got so intense. We're talking about a 300,000 signature petition demanding a secret alternate ending that never actually existed. This wasn't ordinary finale grumbling. This was something much more notable. Let's start with Euphoria. Euphoria wrapped its run on May 31st, 2026, with an episode called In God We Trust. And HBO didn't even initially confirm that this was the series finale, which tells you something about how the rollout was handled. The show had spent 7 years building Rue into one of the most sympathetic addiction narratives on television, something creator Sam Levinson had talked about as deeply personal, drawn from his own experience. Here's what the finale actually did. About 35 minutes into a 90-minute episode, Rue died of a substance-laced pill. The rest of the runtime pivoted almost entirely to Ali, a previously minor character, going on a revenge mission against her dealer. Meanwhile, major characters fans had followed for years got essentially nothing. Jules barely appeared. Maddie and Lexi, two of the show's most prominent characters, never got a scene processing Rue's death at all. Cassie's storyline turned into launching a social media content house with Maddie, treated almost like a punchline against the weight of what had just happened. The reaction was fast and brutal. Fans didn't just dislike the episode, they described feeling cheated. Like the show had broken an unspoken promise it had spent years building with its audience. One especially widely shared post described watching a character people had rooted for since high school get turned, in the writer's words, into a symbol of hope for people struggling with addiction, only for the finale to strip that away in favor of shock value. Others zeroed in specifically on the structural problem. Killing Rue wasn't necessarily the issue on its own. It was that almost nobody else in the cast got to react to it. As one fan put it online, they wanted to see Maddie and Lexi's reaction, and instead got almost nothing. The entire finale was an experience that left you asking, what was that? It was unsatisfying. Somewhere in the middle of all of this, fans started making the exact comparisons I opened up with. Memes lining up Euphoria's chaotic character fate next to Game of Thrones, and within days next to Stranger Things, treating the ending fumbled as a genre unto itself in 2026. Next, let's talk about Stranger Things. And I know that technically came out at the end of 2025, but it's still within the same 12-month span as the other two I'm talking about in this video, so I want to discuss it. I can't do this video without talking about Stranger Things. If Euphoria's finale sparked outrage, Stranger Things' ending sparked something closer to a full-blown fandom civil war, and it's one of the most chaotic examples of finale backlash in recent memory. Some context first. Stranger Things ran for 9 years and reportedly spent close to $500 million across its final season. Netflix split the season's 8 episodes across 3 separate release windows: Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's Eve. That decision alone created a strange rhythm where momentum kept resetting instead of building towards a real climax. Then came episode 7, The Bridge, which became the flashpoint for almost everything that followed. In it, the character Will comes out as gay to his friends and family. If you're still watching this video, make sure you like and subscribe, please, that helps the channel so much. Moving on. The response split into 2 furious camps that notably were both angry for opposite reasons. One group, a segment of the fandom who'd shipped Will and Mike for years, felt cheated that this dynamic got reduced to what they saw as an underwhelming play-down moment rather than the central relationship they'd hoped for. A separate group accused the show of queerbaiting, or alternatively, called the scene forced, unnecessary, and out of character for someone as private as well. The episode ended up review bombed hard enough that it became the lowest rated episode in the entire 9-year run of the show, sitting around 5.6 out of 10 on IMDb. The numbers tell the rest of the story. Every previous season of Stranger Things sat at 90% or higher critic approval on Rotten Tomatoes. Season 5's critic score landed lower too, but the real gap opened when audiences. A 56% audience score, by far the worst of any season, dragging down what had been one of the most consistently well-reviewed shows on the platform. It kept escalating from there, fans became so convinced that the real, better ending was deliberately withheld. That theory was called conformity gate, and it spread across TikTok, built on misread continuity errors, insisting that a ninth episode existed somewhere, and it didn't. Cast members confirmed there was no hidden cut. The petition demanding its release still crossed 300,000 signatures anyway. And when Netflix later released the behind-the-scenes documentary about the making of the final season, it revealed something that probably didn't help fan confidence much. The Duffer Brothers admitted they went into production on the finale without a finished script. That is mind-blowing. They described the intense pressure from the studio to deliver the episode on a deadline that the writing hadn't caught up to. Co-creator Matt Duffer later said he regretted doing press so soon after the finale aired, given how quickly the backlash escalated once he started fielding direct questions about it. The third show I'm going to talk about is The Boys, which wrapped its main series on the 20th of May 2026, with an episode titled Blood and Bone, closing out the long-simmering rivalry between Butcher and Homelander after 5 seasons. Unlike the other two, the reaction to The Boys wasn't a single unified wave of anger. It was more evenly split down the middle, which arguably makes it a more interesting case. A meaningful chunk of fans called the ending satisfying and joked about how thoroughly Homelander's downfall landed, and pointed out that after years of setup, giving him a genuinely undignified defeat was actually the right note to end on. But a large vocal portion of the audience felt the opposite, that the finale rushed years of build-up into a single overstuffed episode, and that Homelander's arc, in particular, fizzled rather than exploded, and that the side characters, like Marie, barely factored into a conclusion that was supposed to be their story too. One widely circulated post joked that the writing felt like it had been generated by AI, which, fair or not as a critique, tells you how mechanical some of the fans found the plotting. Others pointed specifically to the marketing, arguing that the show had been sold as an enormous ending and instead delivered something noticeably smaller in scale. And then there's the detail that really cements this as part of the same 2026 pattern. Fans reacting to The Boys' finale kept reaching for Stranger Things as their reference points for disappointment, asking directly online whether the ending was as bad as that one. When a completely unrelated show on a different network, in a different genre, becomes your fanbase's shorthand for a finale that let us down, that's a sign that the conversation has moved beyond a single show's writer's room, and it's a bit broader. To be fair to television as a whole this year, not everything stuck that landing badly. When outlets polled readers on the best series finale of 2026, Outlander came out on top by a wide margin. What separates Outlander from the 3 case studies that I've discussed? It comes down to something fairly simple. Outlander didn't appear to be racing a production deadline with an unfinished script. And it also didn't cram a season's worth of unresolved plot into a single supersized episode. But since we can see that it is possible to end a long show on a high note, why do these mistakes that I've talked about, keep happening back to back? Let's look at the 3 flops together. And there are a few threads that repeat across all of them. Compressed production timelines under real studio pressure, as the Stranger Things documentary revealed outright. A tendency to prioritize one big swing, a shocking death, a dramatic power loss, a startling reveal, overspending time with the ensemble cast audiences had actually shown up for over multiple seasons. And a pattern of treating the finale as a single enormous event, rather than the last chapter of a story that had been paced out properly up to that point. None of that necessarily means that the industry is contracting or falling apart. It might just mean that ending a long-running, deeply loved show well is actually hard, and that in 3 different writers' rooms working under real deadline pressures this particular year, they all landed on similar shortcuts under similar stress. This could be a coincidence of scheduling, a symptom of how streaming platforms pressure showrunners to deliver moments built for social media over patient storytelling, or a mix of other things. Here's the thing worth remembering before writing 2026 off entirely. Outlander and some other shows have proven that the skill to land a finale well still exists in the industry right now. In the same calendar year as these 3 disappointments, so far, my question is why 3 of the biggest, highest pressure shows specifically didn't have the time or the room to do a good finale the way the fans expect them to. Let me know which of these 3 finales you think was the roughest, or if you think one of them actually got an unfairly harsh reaction. Subscribe for more of these breakdowns as the rest of this finale-heavy year plays out. Till next time!